The Changing World of Mormonism. Chapter 6. The first vision. Mormon Apostle Legrand Richards proclaims, quote, "On the morning of a beautiful spring day in 1820 there occurred one of the most important and momentous events in this world's history. God, the Eternal Father and His Son, Jesus Christ, appeared to Joseph Smith and gave instructions concerning the establishment of the kingdom of God upon the earth in these latter days." End quote. A Marvelous Work and a Wonder, 1966, page 7. Joseph Smith published his story in the Mormon publication Times and Seasons in 1842. The following is his description of the vision. "So in accordance with my determination, to ask of God, I retired to the woods to make the attempt. It was on the morning of a beautiful clear day, early in the spring of 1820. I saw a pillar of light exactly over my head. When the light rested upon me I saw two personages, whose brightness and glory defy all description, standing above me in the air. One of them spake unto me, calling me by name, and said, pointing to the other, This is my beloved Son, hear him. I asked the personages who stood above me in the light, which of all the sects was right. I was answered that I must join none of them, for they were all wrong, and the personage who addressed me said that all their creeds were an abomination in his sight, that those professors were all corrupt. He again forbade me to join with any of them, and many other things did he say unto me which I cannot write at this time." Times and Seasons, Volume 3, pages 728 to 748. This story is now published in the Pearl of Great Price and is accepted as scripture by the Mormon people. Apostle John A. Widtsoe said that, quote, "The first vision of 1820 is of first importance in the history of Joseph Smith. Upon its reality rest the truth and value of his subsequent work." End quote. Joseph Smith, Seeker After Truth, page 19. James B. Allen, who is now assistant church historian, stated that, quote, "Belief in the vision is one of the fundamentals to which faithful members give assent. Its importance is second only to belief in the divinity of Jesus of Nazareth. The story is an essential part of the first lesson given by Mormon missionaries to prospective converts, and its acceptance is necessary before baptism." End quote. Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, Autumn, 1966, page 29. Fawn M. Brodie was one of the first to cast serious doubt upon the authenticity of Joseph Smith's story of the first vision. The description of the vision was first published by Orson Pratt in his Remarkable Visions in 1840, 20 years after it was supposed to have occurred. Between 1820 and 1840 Joseph's friends were writing long panegyrics. His enemies were defaming him in an unceasing stream of affidavits and pamphlets, and Joseph himself was dictating several volumes of Bible-flavored prose. But no one in this long period even intimated that he had heard the story of the two gods. At least, no such intimation has survived in print or manuscript. The first published Mormon history, begun with Joseph's collaboration in 1834 by Oliver Cowdery, ignored it altogether. Joseph's own description of the first vision was not published until 1842, 22 years after the memorable event. If something happened that spring morning in 1820, it passed totally unnoticed in Joseph's hometown, and apparently did not even fix itself in the minds of members of his own family. The awesome vision he described in later years may have been the elaboration of some half-remembered dream stimulated by the early revival excitement and reinforced by the rich folklore of visions circulating in his neighborhood. Or it may have been sheer invention, created some time after 1834 when the need arose for a magnificent tradition to cancel out the stories of his fortune-telling and money-digging. No Man Knows My History, New York, 1957. Pages 24 to 25. Dr. Hugh Nibley, of Brigham Young University, was very disturbed by Mrs. Brodie's statements, but he admitted that Joseph Smith did not publish the story until 1842. Quote, "Joseph Smith's official account of his first vision and the visits of the angel Moroni was written in 1838 and first published in the Times and Seasons in 1842." End quote. Improvement Era, July 1961, page 490. Perhaps one of the most damaging evidences that Joseph Smith did not see the Father and the Son in 1820, to those who believe in the restoration of the priesthood, is the fact that in the year 1832 Joseph Smith claimed to have a revelation which stated that a man could not see God without the priesthood. This revelation is published as section 84 of the Doctrine and Covenants. In verses 21 to 22 we read, "And without the ordinances thereof, and the authority of the priesthood, the power of godliness is not manifest unto men in the flesh, for without this no man can see the face of God, even the Father, and live." Now, it is claimed that the Father and the Son appeared to the prophet Joseph Smith before the church was organized and the priesthood restored to the earth. Doctrines of Salvation, by Joseph Fielding Smith, Volume 1, page 4. The revelation given in 1832 suggests that Joseph Smith's story of the first vision was made up years after it was supposed to have occurred. Smith did not even claim to have the priesthood in 1820, and the Doctrine and Covenants clearly says that without the priesthood no man can see God and live. James B. Allen, who now serves as assistant church historian, frankly admitted that the story of the first vision was not given general circulation in the 1830s. Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, Autumn 1966, page 33. Dr. Allen makes some startling concessions in this article. He admits, for instance, that none of the available contemporary writings about Joseph Smith in the 1830s, none of the publications of the church in that decade, and no contemporary journal or correspondence yet discovered mentions the story of the first vision. Dr. Allen goes on to state that in the 1830s the general membership of the church knew little, if anything, about it. In the past, Mormon apologists have argued that Joseph Smith's first vision was well known from the first time it was announced in 1820. It is refreshing to read James B. Allen's attempt to set the record straight. We were planning to extract a lengthy quotation from Dr. Allen's article, but he refused to give us permission. Those who are interested, however, can read his entire article in Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, Autumn 1966, pages 29 to 45. Strange accounts. Mormon leaders have maintained that Joseph Smith told only one story concerning his first vision. Preston Nibley asserted that, Joseph Smith lived a little more than 24 years after this first vision. During this time he told but one story. Joseph Smith the Prophet, 1944, page 30. At the very time that Preston Nibley made this statement, the Mormon leaders were suppressing at least 3 accounts of the first vision by Joseph Smith which were written prior to the account he published in the Times and Seasons. Levi Edgar Young, who was the head of the 7 presidents of 70s in the Mormon Church, told Lamar Peterson that he had examined a strange account of the first vision and was told not to reveal what it contained. The following, from notes by Lamar Peterson, recounts the interview with Levi Edgar Young which was held on February 3, 1953. His curiosity was excited when reading in Robert Stock History reference to documents from which these writings were compiled. Asked to see them. Told to get higher permission. Obtained that permission. Examined the documents. Was told not to copy or tell what they contained. Said it was a strange account of the first vision. Was put back in vault. Remains unused, unknown. We became interested in the strange account and wrote to the church historian for a copy. Our letter was never answered, and we had almost given up hope of ever seeing this document. To our great surprise, however, 3 strange accounts of the first vision have now come to light. The first appeared in the thesis, An Analysis of the Accounts Relating Joseph Smith's Early Visions, by Paul R. Cheeseman. Mr. Cheeseman was a student at Brigham Young University who was trying to gather information to support the first vision story. In his zeal, however, Mr. Cheeseman brought to light a document which delivers a fatal blow to the official account of the first vision. Not realizing the serious implications of this document, Mr. Cheeseman reproduced it as Appendix D of his thesis. This document, written by Joseph Smith himself, not only makes it evident that he did not see both the Father and the Son in 1820, but also casts a shadow of doubt upon his entire story of the origin of the Church. Mr. Cheeseman states that it appears to be the earliest written account of the first vision. He says that it was never published or referred to by any of the authorities of the Church as far as the writer has been able to determine. Instead of going back over and revising, Joseph Smith evidently dictated the story later as we have it in Appendix U. An analysis of the accounts relating Joseph Smith's early visions, M.A. Thesis, Brigham Young University, 1965, page 64. In 1965 we published this early account of the first vision under the title, Joseph Smith's Strange Account of the First Vision. Because the document was so unusual, some members of the Mormon Church doubted its authenticity. Although the Mormon leaders would make no public statement concerning the document, James B. Allen, who was at the time Associate Professor of History at Brigham Young University, admitted that the document was genuine. In an article published in 1966, he stated, "One of the most significant documents of that period yet discovered was brought to light in 1965 by Paul R. Cheeseman. This is a handwritten manuscript apparently composed about 1833 and either written or dictated by Joseph Smith. It includes the story of the first vision. The story varies in some details from the version presently accepted. The manuscript has apparently lain in the LDS Church Historian's office for many years, and yet few if any who saw it realized its profound historical significance." Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, Autumn 1966, page 35. The Mormon leaders suppressed this account of the first vision for over 130 years. But after we printed it, thousands of copies were distributed throughout the world. Finally, 4 years after we published the document, the Church Historical Department made a public statement confirming the authenticity of the manuscript. Dean C. Jesse, who is a member of the staff at the LDS Church Historian's office in Salt Lake City, claims that the document was written by Joseph Smith in 1831 or 1832. On at least 3 occasions prior to 1839 Joseph Smith began writing his history. The earliest of these is a 6-page account recorded on 3 leaves of a ledger book, written between the summer of 1831 and November 1832. The 1831-32 history transliterated here contains the earliest known account of Joseph Smith's first vision, Brigham Young University Studies, Spring 1969, pages 277-78. At first Dean Jesse felt that the document was penned by Frederick G. Williams, but on more careful examination he found that it was actually written by Joseph Smith himself. A closer look at the original document has shown that while Williams wrote the beginning and end of the narrative, Joseph Smith wrote the remainder, including the portion containing the details of his first vision. This is the only known account of the vision in his own hand. Most of his writings were dictated, which is not to say that other accounts are less authentic. Dialogue, A Journal of Mormon Thought, Spring 1971, page 86. Now that Brigham Young University Studies has published a photograph of this document in the Spring 1969 issue, page 281, we no longer have to depend upon Cheeseman's typed copy.